Hey everybody, as we continue going through the book of John, we're in John chapter 6. And I mean, this chapter is packed with good information that you need to know about, okay? 71 verses in this chapter. I'm actually going to split it up into two lessons. So we'll do John 6 this week and John 6 next week as well. So let me give you the overview for both weeks, okay? In John 6, you're going to find three major stories. The first one is Jesus feeds the 5,000, followed by Jesus walking on water. And then the third story, which takes up a good bit, at least the second half, if not more of the chapter, covers that when Jesus says, I am the bread of life. So what we see in the first two stories is that Jesus shows us, or what John calls the fourth and the fifth sign, that Jesus is the Messiah. He is the anointed one, the chosen one by God to come forward. Right? The first sign we talked about way back in John chapter 2 when we talked about Jesus turning the water into wine. The second one is when Jesus healed the official son. And the third one was when he healed the man at the pool of Bethsaida. Now, all of a sudden in this chapter, we get sign 4 and 5 of Jesus feeding 5,000 men, possibly even more. It's estimated it could have been up to 20,000 people, 25 people there if you count the women and the children. So anywhere from 5 to 25,000 people were fed with how many loaves of bread? How many fish? That's something I'm going to let you dive in and figure out, okay? But also the story that goes right after that is Jesus walking on the water, which is the fifth sign that John gives us that he's the anointed, as that Jesus actually walks out to the boat on the water. I mean, the properties of this world do not contain Jesus. What a sign that John gives us, a miracle that John gives us that he is the Messiah. Okay, so dive into that, really look into that. And then finally at the end, it's I am the bread of life. This is the first of the 7 I am statements that John uses that Jesus clearly states. I am the I am. I am God. And here he uses it in the context of saying, I am the bread. So a couple things for you to question, a couple things for you to dive in as you just hit all 71 verses. You may hit all 71 verses this week and next week. You may just say, hey, I'm going to take the first two stories this week and then save the I am the bread for next week. However you choose to do it, make sure you dive in. But here's a couple of questions just to help your thoughts as you go through, okay? Which disciples are mentioned in this whole chapter? When you look through the chapter, what disciples are mentioned? Because a lot of times we hear about the 12 disciples and we hear about Peter, James, and John, but then all of a sudden the other disciples outside of Judas at the end, you just don't hear their names as much. Are there other disciples mentioned in this chapter? Just look to see who they are, see where you may see them in other stories in the Gospels or even in the book of Acts down the road. But then also, where's the other miracles? The feeding of the 5,000, is it found in other Gospels? Go look up those references as well. Go look up if they are in the other Gospels, because you can do your research. Go look at it and see how are these stories different than the one that John tells? How are they similar? Is there another time maybe in the Gospels where Jesus feeds people miraculously like this? And look those up. What about when Jesus walks on water? Look in other Gospels to see if that story is given as well. And what are the similarities? What parts does John leave out because it doesn't fit in his story? What others may add something into that stuck out more in their memory? Okay, so look and compare and contrast between those stories. All the stories are true. All the stories are right that are in the Bible. It's just they have different perspective from different eyewitnesses of what they want to emphasize within the context of their storytelling, okay? And then lastly, when we get down here to the I am the bread of life, what happens when Jesus says, I am the bread of life? How does the crowd respond to it? How do the disciples respond to it? And what you see is that Jesus declares, I am the bread of life, and then there's this huge discussion that breaks out back and forth. And it can kind of even get a little gruesome depending on how he explains it and how he takes it over the top. What's the result of Jesus calling himself the bread of life? I think what you'll see is a pattern that develops every time Jesus says, I am the bread of life, or I am in these other statements. You'll see that the crowd, always look to see how the crowd reacts to it, okay? So I hope that you have a great time diving into this. It's a little difficult. I'm going to state that up front. I've been looking over it all week as well. John 6 is just jam-packed with a lot of good theological things, a good a lot of good explanation of who Jesus is, and you may have to dig in and do a little more research, but I believe you can. I know you can. We've had 5 other chapters to practice up to this point. So you are ready, you are set, you enjoy John chapter 6.